Hey y'all, today we're illustrating a spring tulip. This is the first video in my Whimsy and Bloom series, and I'm so excited to create with you. Grab your iPad and pencil and let's get started. Before we begin, pause the video here to download the project files and brushes for this lesson. Once you have them installed, press play and let's jump in.
All right, let's begin by selecting our sketch layer and reducing the opacity down to 10%. Now we're going to select our brush. We're going to go with the brown brush for this portion of the drawing. We're going to go back to our layers menu, add a new layer, and drag that sketch layer up to the very top. And select the new layer. It's going to be our background layer. And now we're going to select our first color. We're going to go with the pink color, the first color in the palette. And we're simply going to drag and drop it to fill it in. There we go. Now we're going to add a new layer. We're going to select our next color. This is going to be for the greenery. I'm going to select the third color on the color palette, the darkest green. And we're going to begin filling in these layers of greenery. This will be the darkest color of the greenery. And make sure that you're connecting your lines because we're going to be color filling all of these. There you go. Drag and drop. Now we're going to create a new layer. Select the background layer, plus icon for a new layer. And we're going to select the fourth color on the color palette, the lightest green, and begin filling in the leaves. We're going to be doing this in layers so we can add some depth to the greenery. All right, now we're going to drag and drop. Oops, if you do that, 2-finger tap, you can undo. Drag and drop your first one, push continue filling, and just tap in the middle. Now we're going to select the background layer and add a new layer in the next section of greenery. We're just going to keep doing the same thing. Fill in this gap here. Connect our lines. Start on the other side. Now we're ready to drag and drop. Just continue filling and tap. We're going to select the background layer, a new layer, and we're going to finish up this last leaf here. Let's drag and drop. There we go. Now we're going to select the first layer of greenery that we've illustrated. It should be at the top. Create a new layer, and now we're going to select the white, which is the second color on the color palette. And begin filling in these petals. I'm going to draw the first one and drop it. I absolutely love tulips. They're one of my favorite springtime flowers. Let's add our next layer and illustrate our second one. Another cute little petal. I'm going to drag and drop the color. And our last petal layer, I'm going to add it. Very bottom color layer and drag and drop the color. Now we're going to be adding some texture. I'm going to select the greenery layer at the bottom that's right atop the background layer. I'm going to create a clipping mask on that layer and change it to multiply. We're going to select another brush. We're going to go with the sand brush to add texture. And we're going to tap and hold to change our color back to that green. Now with the sand brush, all you have to do is to tap and drag just a little bit. You don't have to use it to fill it in or anything like that. Let's reduce our opacity down to 70% on this layer, and we're going to merge it down. We're going to go to our next greenery layer and do the same. Add a new layer, clipping mask, and multiply. If I'm going too quickly for you in any part of the video, just take a quick break and pause it to catch up. Let's reduce this down to 70%. and merge down. And we're on to our next greenery layer. Select that layer, add a new layer, and we're going to change it to a clipping mask and change the blend mode to multiply once again. We'll be doing this for all of the layers. I'm going to reduce this down around 70% and merge it down. All right, for the stalk, we're going to add a new layer. We're going to create a clipping mask, change the blend mode to multiply, and fold, change the color, and just tap, tap, tap to fill it in. And reduce the opacity down to around 70% and merge that down. Now we're going to work on the petals, the very bottom layer. Create a new layer, clipping mask, and multiply. Remember to tap and hold on the color you want to select. I'm going to merge that down. We're not going to change the opacity on the petal level layers. Clipping mask, multiply. Just tap, tap, tap. Merge that down. Select our last petal. Add a new layer, clipping mask, and multiply. Here we go. Now we've added texture to the entire drawing. We're going to merge that down. We're going to reduce our opacity on our sketch layer down to around 4%. Now we're going to select that last greenery layer one more time. We're going to add a new layer. We're going to select the overlay in the blending mode and then clipping mask. Now we're going to go to our color palette. Make sure you're in classic mode and simply grab the color and drag it down to the very corner until it is in the black area. We have black selected. We're going to go back to our round brush and we're going to create some shadows and highlights. If you want more texture, you can use the lump brush, but for this I'm using the round brush. Now we're just going to create our shadows. And these do not have to be perfect. Now just envision where you think they would be. Now we're going to drag to the white, drag it straight up to select the white. We're going to add our highlights in. Now we're going to reduce the opacity. I'm going to reduce it to around 35% and then merge down. Our next greenery layer, we're going to add a new layer, clipping mask, and change the blend mode to overlay. Since we already have the white selected, we're going to go ahead with our highlights on this one. Now, if you tap and hold the color button in the corner, it will automatically change to the last color you had selected. And we'll be able to do our shadows. Now we're going to reduce our opacity layer, reduce it down to around 30%, and then merge down. Select our next layer, add a new layer, clipping mask, and change the blend mode to overlay. And we're going to do this all over again. Starting with our shadows. So we have the black selected already. And just fill those in. And tap and hold to change to white. Let's add our highlights. There we go. Now we're going to reduce the opacity. I'm going to reduce that down to around 25%. Merge down. Select your last greenery layer, add a layer, clipping mask, and change to overlay. Now hold and change to our black, create our shadows. Hold and change to our white for our highlights. Now we're going to reduce the opacity down to around 25% and then merge down. All right, select our bottom layer, petal, new layer, clipping mask. We're going to change this to overlay. Tap and hold to change to black. And for this, we're just going to drag and drop. I'm going to darken the whole layer. Merge it down. Select our next layer. Same thing here. We're going to do a clipping mask and an overlay. Again, filling in the shadows on this next petal. Let's change to white. Let's get a nice little highlight on the side. All right, now we're going to reduce the opacity down to around 28% and merge down. Now for our last layer, I'm going to add a new layer, clipping mask, overlay, and for this one we're just going to do a highlight. I'm going to raise our brush size just a little bit to 3% for this, just so it goes a little faster. There we go. And now we're going to reduce the opacity down to around 35%, merge down, and there you have it, guys. Let's turn off our sketch layer. Now to merge it, simply touch on the on the first layer and the last layer and pinch it together to merge. So you can see I'm having fun with this. And there you have it, our whimsical spring tulip. I hope you had fun illustrating along with me in this first video of the Whimsy and Bloom series. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next cozy spring illustration. I'd also love to see your artwork, so feel free to tag me on Instagram or share it in the comments. Thanks for drawing with me, and I'll see you in the next video.